coast to coast. What matters, when it matters. This is today's talk. Your world, your news, right now.
$1 million housing crisis? Just let that sink in for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, you're in the right spot. Welcome to the deep dive.
Your shortcut through, well, all the noise of the day's news.
Exactly. We've been digging through reports, the New York Times, BBC, you name it, to bring you what really matters. And today, well, we're coming at it from two different angles.
Just because there's always more than one side to the story.
Always.
Okay.
So one view might be a bit more, let's say, optimistic.
And the other, maybe a little more skeptical. We're aiming for balance here.
Yeah, our mission really is to give you a clear, engaging look at the top stories, different angles, what's actually significant for you to know without drowning you in info.
Exactly. We're not just scratching the surface. We want you to get a real sense of what's happening and, why it's important. Let's dive in.
All right, first up, Pope Francis. Huge figure, obviously. The New York Times has this really interesting piece on his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
When he first became Pope, there was a lot buzzing around. Hopes, anxieties, you know the drill.
Oh, yeah. Liberals hoping for, ordination of women, changes on gay marriage.
Right, and conservatives worried about, fundamental doctrine shifts. Big stuff.
But the reality, maybe not quite what either side expected. It seems like Pope Francis really leaned into debate, discussion.
So the optimistic take on that is,
Yeah.
what? That encouraging talk is a good thing in itself.
Well, yeah, potentially. The idea is that fostering this open conversation, this debate, it could lead to a more inclusive church over time, sort of an evolution through dialogue. These big institutions, they often change slowly, right? Incrementally.
Okay, but then there's the flip side, the skepticism. Did all this talk actually do anything about those huge issues people were hoping for or worried about?
That's the question, isn't it? If you're looking at it skeptically, you'd ask, where's the concrete action? Those hopes on both sides, they haven't really materialized, have they?
Not in a big, definitive way, no. So does talk without action really cut it? Does it address what people feel needs addressing?
It's a fair point. Dialogue is crucial, sure. But from a skeptical view, you could argue it's not enough if people are looking for decisive change now. It really highlights that tension between discussion and, well, getting things done in these old, established structures.
And speaking of endings and transitions, there was this little detail in the Times, an article called Prelude to a Funeral, about slight changes in, papal burial rituals. Seems minor, but it makes you think, doesn't it? About his era ending.
Totally. It connects to the bigger picture, these subtle shifts. They remind you that, every papacy ends. And it naturally leads to that question.
Who's next?
Exactly. And the BBC often points out, picking a new pope, it's famously unpredictable, adds a whole other layer of what if to the church's future.
Okay, let's shift gears. From the Vatican to, unfortunately, Kashmir. More conflict. The headlines are just grim. Civilians killed near Pahalgam.
Yeah, the Times piece said it shattered the illusion of calm. 26 people in such a beautiful valley, too. Families, tourists. It's heartbreaking.
It really is. A brutal reminder of the tensions just simmering there.
And the response has been swift. India's retaliated, and they're pointing fingers pretty strongly at Pakistan for allegedly backing terrorism.
And the border crossing?
Close. The main one. And some Pakistani visas canceled, too, according to the BBC. It definitely feels like an escalation. The skeptical view here is hard to avoid. It's dangerous, and it just highlights how fragile things are there. It's such a complex, long-running dispute.
Reading those first-hand accounts, scenes of chaos and horror, rage and despair, the human cost is just right there, isn't it? These aren't statistics.
Absolutely not. Their lives destroyed, and the worry now is, what comes next? Another cycle of violence.
Is there any room for optimism, any diplomatic efforts?
No, diplomacy is always the goal, but honestly, in this kind of atmosphere with so much anger and grief, it's tough to be genuinely optimistic about quick de-escalation. The world will be watching for sure, but it's a huge challenge.
Okay, let's turn to Ukraine now. There's this proposal from U.S. Vice President Vance. It's getting a lot of attention. The Times says it sharply favors Russia, basically freezing the battle lines where they are now. That sounds significant.
It really is. And, the skeptical take is pretty strong here. Freezing the lines like that, it raises huge questions. Is the U.S. signaling it might just walk away if there's no full agreement?
Which could essentially mean recognizing Russian control over the territory they hold now.
Potentially, yes. And we know Zelensky, as reported by the BBC and others, has flat out rejected recognizing Russian control of Crimea. Trump actually criticized him for that stance. It just shows you the massive gaps.
So is there any positive spin? The Times mentions the U.S. intensifying bid to end Ukraine war. The BBC says talks are gathering pace. Is more talking better than nothing?
Well, you could cautiously say yes. More diplomatic effort is arguably better than none. It's potentially a step. But like the BBC notes, those major gaps are still enormous. The chances of a quick fix still seem pretty unclear.
And the outcome here has massive ripple effects, right? Global power dynamics, alliances.
Oh, absolutely. Huge implications, whatever happens.
All right, let's look at Syria. President al-Shara. The Times called him a jihadist-turned-president, which is quite a description.
Yeah, referencing his past before taking his current role. It's complex.
He did an interview, and he's looking for new allies, it seems. He wants the U.S. to lift sanctions.
That's right. And he's also hinting, kind of vaguely, about possible future military help from Russia and Turkey.
Interesting bedfellows, potentially.
It really shows you how fluid alliances can be in the Middle East. Old enemies, new partners. It shifts.
Staying in the region, Jordan, they're making a move against the Muslim Brotherhood.
A decisive one. The Times reports they're going for a complete ban on their activities. This follows a court ruling back in 2020 to actually disband the group.
So this is making that ruling more concrete.
Seems like it. It's part of that ongoing, often tricky relationship between governments in the region and various Islamist political movements like the Brotherhood. They have a long history, and Jordan's clearly taking a fun line here.
Okay, hopping across the Atlantic, Canada. That headline we mentioned earlier, $1 million housing crisis.
Yeah, it paints quite a picture. Costs are just soaring, especially in cities like Vancouver. Average home price pushing $1 million.
Wow. And people are leaving the cities because of it.
That's what the reports suggest, yeah. An exodus. And it puts huge pressure, understandably, on whoever leads the next government. The skeptical view is just, how do you even fix this?
But maybe. Could that pressure be a good thing? Could it force some really innovative thinking, new policies?
That's the potential optimistic angle, I suppose, that the crisis itself becomes a catalyst for real change. Public demand can definitely push governments to act, sometimes in unexpected ways.
Now, for something a bit different, cultural almost. Mexico. Narco corridos, those ballads about drug lords.
Ah, yes, the odes to Mexican drug lords. The Times called them pop hits, which is kind of wild.
Apparently, they're hugely popular. Artists built massive audiences singing about these figures.
It's a fascinating cultural thing, right? Music reflecting society, maybe even defiance. But it's complex, obviously, given the subject matter.
And now cities and states are pushing back, trying to ban them.
Exactly. So you have this tension between, artistic expression, popularity, and serious public safety concerns. Really interesting clash.
Okay. Slightly better news, perhaps.
Yeah.
Istanbul had an earthquake, magnitude 6.2.
But crucially, no deaths reported. Both the Times and BBC emphasize that.
That's definitely good news. Still must have been terrifying, though.
Absolutely. Especially after that devastating quake Turkey had in 2023. Reports said lots of people rushed into the streets, planning to sleep outside even. Understandable anxiety, for sure.
Elsewhere in the Middle East, tensions between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas seem high. President Abbas. Strong words.
Very strong. The BBC reported he called Hamas sons of dogs, demanding they release the Gaza hostages.
And he thinks Hamas gave Israel excuses to continue the war.
That's his reported view, yeah. It really highlights that deep, long-standing split in Palestinian politics. Very different views on how to move forward.
And finally, a quick couple of updates. Elon Musk. Looks like he might be stepping back a bit from Doge.
Yeah, the BBC reported that after Tesla's profits dipped, he apparently said he'll only spend 1 or 2 days a week on Trump administration matters.
Which raises questions about his priorities, Doge's future.
It definitely does. Lots of speculation about what that means for the company and, well, his focus generally seems to be shifting.
And in legal news, Harvey Weinstein's retrial has started.
That's right. He pleaded not guilty. The prosecution, according to the BBC, is arguing he used his unfettered power to abuse women, revisiting the case after the earlier conviction was overturned.
A major case with huge repercussions.
Absolutely. It continues to be a really significant story in the whole conversation about accountability and the legal system.
So, wow. That's quite a tour of the day's events. As we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear we've seen a lot of complex situations, often with those contrasting narratives we talked about.
From Pope Francis's legacy and the tragedy in Kashmir to the difficult path in Ukraine and all those shifting dynamics elsewhere, it really is a mosaic.
Yeah, and we've tried to give you both sides, the optimistic possibilities alongside the more cautious, maybe skeptical realities, just trying to shed some light on what's developing.
And hopefully this has helped you connect the dots, understand the different perspectives out there. That's the goal. Really offer some context, respect your time, but give you something valuable to think about.
Right. And on that note, maybe a final thought for you to mull over. Thinking about all these different challenges and potential turning points we touched on today, what single factor do you think will be most decisive in shaping global events over, say, the next year?
That's a big question. Something to chew on.
Definitely. We encourage you to keep exploring these stories, dig deeper where you're interested, and form your own informed views.
And join us again next time for another deep dive.